Eiko be talu.
Hello, hello.
Eiko be.
Tudo bem?
Eiko be.
How's it
Ereiko
going?
katupe.
What was it?
Ereiko katupe. Katu?
Eriko, Eriko Katupe. What is Eriko Katupe?
A iko is a star to be. Iko katu star bem. To be good. Ereiko katupe. Are you good?
Eriko Katupe.
Say aiko
Thank you.
katu. Aiko katu. Or you
Eriko
say
Katu.
daiko katui. That means I'm not good. Daiko katui. That's kind of harder. We haven't learned
What
that
does
yet.
what does that one mean?
Here, let me write these in the chat. So, iko. Eiko be Paulo. Tande
Pico
karuka.
guy, guys.
Iko is to
Can you?
be a star. Iko. And then ereiko. Who can guess what that means? Manapende.
Eriko, I am.
You be. It's like you are. Ereiko. You are. Right? And then we can go ereiko katu. You're good. Right? You're well. Katu. We just throw the katu on there. And then if we want to ask a question, we throw pe at the end. Pe is. I got a cat here. Maracanã.
Question.
Yaguaraí. Yaguaramirim. It's a little jaguar. Yaguaramirim. What's your question? You have a question? Or you say-
Jaguar Mirim.
Yeah, Yaguara. Yaguara. Ing. You can do it like that. Ing with the. I don't have the way to write the. I'm gonna use a trema here, but it's a nasal. I can't write that on my keyboard. Yaguara ing or mirim. This is how you make diminutives in Tupi. You put the little ing, a glottal stop plus the e at the end. Yaguara ing. Yaguara mirim. Little
I
jaguar.
I understood you say Jaguar Mirim.
Yeah.
Like,
Mirim. Same thing. It's like this is what it
diminution.
is. So let me write it with all this. Yaguara. And then we can write like I'll just write it with this one. Yaguara ing is like saying unsinha, maybe something like that. Unsinha. And then
Yes.
and then we got Yaguara Mirim. That's like onça pequena. Oops, pequena. Well, you get the idea.
Yeah.
That's the difference,
Yeah.
right? But it's the same thing, so you can say it either way. So that's when you see mirim in place names in Brazil, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
little something small. And then the alternative for that is like Asu, Guasu,
Asu.
Yaguaraçu, right? Then there's like a Eira, that means bumblebee, right? Abelha. And then there's another type which is like Eirusu, a big bumblebee, a bigger one, right?
See.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That makes sense to me, especially because I live in São Luís. It's a city in the northeastern part of Brazil. It's the capital of Maranhão state.
Okay.
And it's a big island, right?
Yeah.
And a large island. And one of its official names is Upaon Açu.
Yeah. Type it in for us. Upa un asu. Yeah, that's Tupi for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, hey Mateos, how's it going?
It is.
I've actually found this before. Do you know what the etymology is? Do you already know?
No, I just it's Ilha Grande. It's a big island.
Yeah. So if we go look here, let's share my screen. Let's do this together. You guys are gonna get the dictionary tab. Share. All right. You see my dictionary? Let's look for Ilha. Woo! There it is.
Oh, okay,
And
nice.
then asu. Let's see. How is this in the dictionary? Maybe it's guasu. There he is. Uasu. You gotta keep searching until you find the actual article. There we go. That's how it's defined. Aumentative. Grande. Guasu.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hmm.
so it literally just be like that that one. What was it? Ilha, right there. Upa That's pretty straightforward, huh? Intervalo das águas. Ilha Grande. Uguaçu. Ah, look, it's right here. There you go. Antigo nome de Ilha das Costas do Rio de Janeiro. There's also Upaumirim. That one's
Yeah.
in Santana Maranhão. You know that one?
Wow. Ilha Grande. Ilha
Yeah.
Pequena.
Pretty straightforward. There must be a lot of places
Yes,
called
yes.
this.
We have we have o Palmaçu and o Palmirim
Yeah.
here.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. How about you, Talu? Do you have any place names that you recognize in Tupi from where you're from?
There are a bunch of meetings, like in São Paulo, like the small towns in São Paulo.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of meetings for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
meeting. Let's see. It's probably not as meeting in the dictionary. It's just meeting like this. Coisa miúda, coisa pequena. Meeting. Muitas coisas miúdas. Meeting. Yeah, lots of that. Pretty fun. Okay, so the lesson today. Let me pop out my thing like I do. Picture in picture. I think that's it. There we go. Do you guys see the faces or no? You just see you just see the web page. Can you see your own face? I don't think you can. Okay, that's great actually. So you can see it in the recording, but you guys don't see it. All right, let's start. So do you guys remember who wasn't here when we talked about how to create nouns in Tupi? You remember that, Talu?
Is it by adding a vowel?
Yeah, by adding an a, at the end. And if it doesn't have a vowel, it's already a noun. Pretty easy. How about you, Paulo? Did you know that already? I'm not hearing you. But anyways, I'll just go over it real quick. It's pretty straightforward. You got a root like you cut or quer. If you want it to be a vowel, you either keep it with the vowel or you add an a. Quera, yuka, just like that. So this goes from being to sleep like a verb to being asleep like an action. Dormida, something like that. And this goes from being to kill to murder, something like that. This goes to being a murder, depending on how you use it in the context. You don't actually have to change the end because it's already a vowel. But that's one rule in Tupi. You always have to end with a vowel. And this is what vowels look like. And that's it. And there's some other things to consider, but the thing I wanted to show you today is this. Like, I'm trying to still find a good name for this, but for now I'm going to call it a circumstantial form of a noun because when you see this aba suffix in Tupi, this is like the first step into what we call agglutination, where we're finally exploring how nouns work. Nouns are the most complicated class for sure in Tupi, because with the vowels, they're fairly straightforward. You see how they're conjugated, and you can learn that fairly quickly. With the nouns, there's a lot of phonetic things to consider when you're trying to transform roots into these other forms. And sometimes some forms have multiple accepted ways, and sometimes not. I'm erring on the side of like, if you say a word and I understand how to deconstruct it and be like, oh yeah, you're trying to add the circumstantial form on there, then it's valid to me. You don't have to follow this list exactly, but I made this list to kind of give you a guide to show you, to give you a feeling of how they actually change. And I'll probably end up making a quiz version for this, just like I have for the verbs. So I'll make a quiz so that you guys can just quiz it in your head. Have you guys been doing the quiz with the verbs? Speaking of which, have you had some time to do that? It's pretty fun. How about you, Paula?
I haven't done.
I don't think your microphone works anymore. Maybe it ran out of battery or something. But we'll do some at the end of this class, anyways, just to do it together because it's good. It's good exercise. I learn new words when I do it with you guys. So this table, the basic thing about the circumstantial form is that it doesn't really have a direct relationship to stuff in English and Portuguese. The best way to describe it is that when you just add this normal a or null suffix onto a root to make it a noun, the most basic form of the noun, generally you are describing the act of that verb. You're describing like the happening of that verb. Now this abba is like a level up of abstraction. Now it's talking about like the circumstances behind that verb, if that makes sense. So that could be the time that that verb happened, the place that that verb happened or will happen. That could be talking about some instrument or tool which enabled that verb to happen or by which that verb occurs, right? So that's why I kind of call it a circumstantial form, because it's basically like describing the circumstances of the verb rather than describing the action of the verb. And I think it's probably easier if we just walk through some of these examples to get an idea of how we do the phonetics and also the kind of meanings that these verbs can take on. So first off, we have a column called root ending. So this is describing what different root endings will end up turning into having different little phonetic changes when you put them in this form. Some of them are the same, like these two are pretty much the same. Some of them are very straightforward, like these are all pretty straightforward, but some of them aren't, like R goes to S, N gets a D, M gets a B. And it feels natural once you start to get it. B goes to P, it kind of gets softer. This goes to that. So let's just go from the top down. So if it ends in a nasal vowel, right? Any vowel with a tilde on top of it, then we're just going to add ab. And the reason I don't put the A at the end of this is because... Hey, you're back, Paulo. I can hear you now.
You guys hear me?
Yeah. Let me just repeat what I said really quick for you. When you just use a simple noun ending with the A, it's describing more the action of the verb happening. Okay, but when you use the abba, you go up a level of abstraction and you start describing either the time that something happened, the place that something happened, some tool or instrument by which the verb could take place. So things like that. And sometimes you're even describing the object of the action. Like in second class verbs, oftentimes with second class verbs, we start describing the object of the thing that happened. So we'll take a look at that as we go through the phonetics.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sweet. So nasal vowel. So the first case, if there's a nasal vowel, I didn't write the A at the end of this, is because when you add roots, when you start to agglutinate things onto your nouns, you can still use them as verbs. Isn't that weird? Like you could still use it as, basically anytime you add something on, it becomes a noun, but it also becomes a second class verb. So this is one way that other verbs become second class verbs. So like For example, I mean, it's a very abstract way to thinking, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. But just remember that when you add this onto the root, you're still going to have to end up adding this onto it if there's no a or not, right? And so that's true for any other suffix, is that this is always the last step to making a noun. And if you miss this step, then you're left with a verb of the second class. Does that make sense? Just remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you can add the suffix ab to arun. Arun means to protect something, to guard something. I'm protecting you. It's a pluriform here. You can see the s, and it's also transitive. So you guys want to try and conjugate that? I protect you. How would we do that?
Sorry.
So it would be she oro aron. She oro aron. I protect you.
I was about to say she.
Yeah, she is good. That's a good way to start when it's I. I can always start as she. She oro. Yeah, it's that case where it's the first person, the second person gets an oro. So basically, we have aron, and if we want to talk about the circumstances around the protection, we can say we add the T to make it absolute form, so the protection of people. That's how you want to think about this T. So taron aba. Taron aba is like protection. There's to protect, and then there's protection. Or a safe place to be, right? A place where you are protected. It could mean that. So it depends on how you use this word in what context that you'll have an understanding, but it has to do with the circumstances of that verb, not with the action of the protection. So continuing on, we have verbs that end in ng. So nyenga is the normal noun form of it. To speak, this means words. And then so nyengaba. That could be a proverb, discourse, a place where things happen, you know, like a forum where we talk, a place where we speak. It could be the time that we spoke. So these are the kind of,
Okay.
this is the kind of abstraction that we have with that. So nyengaba, maybe you could even describe my dictionary as a nyengaba, because it's a place where there are words. It's an instrument that you use to learn words, right? It could be something like that. Can you mute, please, Paulo, real quick? There's just a little bit of wind coming in. Thank you. Appreciate that. So now the other case is when we have a nasal vowel and then an I. And so one of those examples is enuia, enuia, enui. So enui means to convoke, to invoke something, to call someone by their name, right? Talu, 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 right? I'm calling you by your name. I'm invoking you. Or when I say, I don't know, Nossa Senhora da Conceição, that's like I'm invoking Mother Mary right now. So that's what enui means, to call someone by their name. And so enuindava would be maybe somebody's name, right? It's the instrument by which you do that verb. How do I invoke you? By your name, right? That's how I'm invoking you. That's the way that I'm calling you, is by your name. Or it could be by your title, or it could be a place by which I call people, or the way that I, you know, like there's a example in here where enuindava. Let's see if they have this. I don't know. Here it is. Enuindaba. And you see it also gives you the option to use a taba. Oops, I just closed it. Anyways, it's saying like, basically the description is saying like, oh, how do I, it was written by Anshiet. It's like, how do I praise the saints properly? And so like, what is the right way of praising the saints? And so the way of calling them, the way of calling the saints would be enuindava, you know, so you don't call their name in vain. You have to know the enuindava. And then another example is if there's the I like that, esarai, esarai. There's no nasal here, so instead of an nd, it turns into a t. Esarai taba. Esarai taba is so this is an example. This is a second class verb. So it behaves a little bit differently when, based on what I've seen. I mean, I could be wrong on this, but based on what I've seen, it behaves a little differently than the other verbs in that when you add the taba, it's talking about the thing that you forgot, right? Because normally, second class verbs are not transitive. So I don't know. To me, this kind of reminds me of like le, le. I don't know. You know that pronoun in Portuguese where it like includes a preposition inside of it. It's like a shortcut to like it makes it seem like you're putting an object in there, but it's an indirect object. So I mean that's kind of how this is working in that case, right? Like normally when you essarai, you forget of something, and this is what this essay is. This essay is like the thing that you are forgetting. So, you know, if I say Shere Sarai, uh, Shere Sarai Nderese, I forget you, you know, something like that. I'm using a preposition there. Whereas here, I'm kind of talking about the thing that was forgot. Ooh, not Enoindaba. I'm on the wrong thing. Esaraña. Here I'm talking about something that was forgotten, right? So Sheresaraitaba could be the thing that I forgot, the circumstances by which I forgot. Because remember, we think of this is also a circumstance, right? What did I forget? The circumstance that I forgot was in the rese. So if I forgot you, then you're what was forgotten. Then if I talk about the circumstances of forgetting, that's kind of like I'm referring to what the rese was referring to. You know what I mean? Pretty interesting. Does that make sense? So they're both circumstances. So the next one is a little strange. See, if it ends with a o, not just an o, but an o. Anga o. This turns into like a guaba. Anga waba. So anga waba. So anga o is to threaten. It's a normal non-pluriform transitive verb. So who wants to conjugate this? I'll let you conjugate it any way you want. I just want to hear a valid conjugation. It's a transitive verb. Anga o.
It's
So-
trend. Okay, go on.
Yeah.
No, you go.
Anyone go.
So I was thinking, like, I threaten you. Maybe is she oro anga
Yes.
or do I have
Very
to? Is that
good.
it?
That's it. I threaten you. She oro anga o. I threaten you.
Okay.
I'm insulting you. Ameaçar. Right? Pretty good.
So
you want to try one?
I have
Paula?
a question
Go ahead.
about that. So just to make sure I understand the whole, like adding a vowel and then adding the rest. So the base form is the verb. And then if I add the vowel, no, the base form is, yeah. And then if I add the vowel, I'm turning it into a noun.
Yes.
And then if I add that extra particle,
Yes.
then I'm turning it into something that derives from that original noun.
Yes.
So,
Some circumstance around that noun.
so like the first one, the taruaba, no, taruaba. That one would be like, it could be, for example, like the shell of something or
Yeah. Sure.
something like that.
Yes. Or your armor, right? Could be your armor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was protected by my armor. The thing that you were protected by, that is the taruaba. That is the circumstance. Or I was protected because it was Jesus' birthday and it's a holy day. And that sounds like something Ansheta would say. Like, the holiness of the day protected me. That could also be the taruaba. Or the blessings that was given to me by the priest. Or, you know, it's kind of abstract, but yeah, it's kind of describing the circumstances around the protection. So We talk about the place
Gotcha.
that you were when the protection happened. Yeah. Any questions,
Okay,
Pablo?
thank you.
You want to try to do the anga o?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's try. Um, I would say she um, anga always threaten, right?
Yeah.
She anga she anga like the I,
She,
it
e,
it's it's the I, the letter I. She I anga
she,
it's
I,
the
anga
sound.
o.
E anga.
Oh, okay. She, I, anga o. So you could do that if it was in the circumstantial form, which we haven't learned yet. But are you trying to say that she is the subject or the object?
She is the subject.
Okay, so she is the
E
subject, and then that's the object. So, um, in the case that it's the third person, if the third person is the
yeah.
object, then you have those alternate sets of pronouns, and we'll just go look at those real quick. That's why I got those here. Let's go look at these personal pronouns. So you're gonna use these here. See that? So you got your ishe,
Yeah.
a. So you're gonna use that. So ishe, a, I, anga, o. So if you put it all together, what do you get?
Oh, but we don't have the he and she. So
No, we don't. Yeah, so it's
our
unimportant. We also don't have plural or singular. It's all the
oh,
same.
okay.
Yeah, it's very general. You'll know by the
So
context.
it would be she o ango.
Okay, so if I'm the subject, I'm doing it to him or he's doing it to me.
Oh, okay. Not all sorry. It's subject prefix. I would like to the object in this case.
Yeah, so the
What would be?
object is going to be I, just like you said.
Oh, okay.
Here, let me go into the dictionary. The dictionary has all of these in here, and it'll help if we just look at the anga o. Let's take a look at this verb. So, when we look here, this is the column you're looking at. So the subject, the object here is I, and the subject is ishe. So this is the form that you're going to follow. Ishe, ae, ayanga o. Ishe, ae, ayanga o. So you can see this is the subject prefix, the a. The object is the I, just as usual, because it's the third person. And then here's the root verb, anga o, right afterwards.
So I for example, ishe is because of the subject is I, right?
Yes, correct.
Ishe. So I have I have another particle along with the verb that that points to the subject. For example, so I have ishe,
Yes.
I,
I.
and with the verb I also have letter A representing the subject I, right?
Correct. Yes.
I.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
And you
Cool.
don't have to say ishe, and you can, and if you want, you can say ae after the verb.
Oh, okay.
The subject, you do have to say the object, but the subject can go away. So you can say aya anga o ae. You can say that. You don't have to say ishe. I just put the full form here to make it very clear, but you can actually, the object can move around because of this object in the verb. You know, the stated object can actually move around, and then you don't need this because it's already there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I have the I following the A
Yes.
that represents the object, right?
Yes.
Is it necessary to have this I before?
No, you can put it after if you want. And you know, if you have a specific noun, like a defined noun, you can actually put it inside. It can take the place of the I. So let me show you
Oh, okay.
this part of the grammar real
Okay.
quick. Let's take a look. We'll jump into here. We're gonna go to the verbs, indicative mood, and we're gonna say third person object, any subject, and we're gonna look at this chart right here. So take a look at the verb. So we have the verb kutuk, kutukar, right?
Yeah.
And we have pira, which means fish. So we can say pira ay kutuk. We can say apira kutuk, or we can say ay kutuk pira. This
Okay.
I is so we have the rule in Tupia and Chigu that the object always sticks to the left of the verb, right?
Yeah.
But in this third person form, we're allowed to move the object before or after the whole clause of the verb because we have this little placeholder. So we maintain the rule of keeping the object next to the verb by putting the placeholder of the I in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So no matter what, the thing that is to the left represents somehow the object. And sometimes this I turns into an S when it's pluriform, right? And you'll see that like here. Like to see is epyak. And because it's pluriform, the I is an S. But it still represents the object. It's still the same thing. It just changed with the sound. Ya becomes sa. So epyak is to see. Asepyak, I saw it. Pira asepyak, the fish I saw. Apira epyak, I, the fish, saw. Asepyak pira, I saw a fish. Does that make sense? You can move it around.
Yeah.
You got options when the object is in the third person, but that's only when the object is in the third person. The rest of them are pretty rigid. And you would just change it. Eresepyak, orosepyak, yasepyak, pesepyak, osepyak. Those are the different forms it can have based on if it's me, you, we again, y'all, or they. All right.
Thanks.
No
I got it.
problem. Pretty interesting. Any more questions? I'll go back into this list. We've got quaba. Quab. So quab is to know something or somebody. You can see the B turns into a P. That's pretty common in Tupi. The B at the end of the word will turn into a P when you start to add stuff. That would happen to this B too. Any of these B's actually. So if we added like quababa, in theory we could add another abba onto this, like, so the abba of the abba, you know, it's like if a verb was like the circumstance of another verb and you're trying to describe a circumstance of that verb circumstance. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I'm not going to think too hard about it, but in that case the B would turn into a P here when we add another thing on, because these are just phonetic changes. So because it ends with a B, it would be like that. So quaba becomes quapaba instead of quapasaba or something, or quapaba, quababa. It's just natural to say quapaba. It sounds better than saying quababa. That's hard. Quapaba. It just sounds better. So it's a pretty natural thing, you know. Quaba, quapaba. So that means knowledge, right? To know something, and then like knowledge, right? Or the place where you know things, or the way that you learned something. How did you learn it? I learned it with the dictionary. The dictionary was the quapaba. It was the means of learning, or to know. Or how do you know them? How do you know that guy? Because of my mutual friend, right? The mutual friend is the quapaba. They're the way that I know them. That's the best way I can try to describe this. Encyclopedia. I just kind of came up with some words. If it ends in an M, if the root ends in an M, then it's going to turn into a mbaba. So ama becomes umbaba, instead of amaba. That just happens naturally too. Umbaba. So that's like a place where you would stand, or a reason why you're standing. Something like that. This means to stand. You want to try to conjugate that? It's intransitive, so it's the same thing as what I just taught you with the a and the ere, but you don't put the I because there's no object. So the intransitive verb just doesn't get that I. How would you say I'm standing?
Ishe ama.
Ishe
Ishe
Yeah.
Oh, because okay, ama makes it a noun.
Let me fix this. This is in the this is right now it's in the noun form, and it really shouldn't be. It should be in the root form because it's a little bit confusing that way. Let me switch this right now. Root form. Let me show you how I make my website. So I just changed it all. Now I'm going to run the code and it's going to compile all the website, and then it's going to go and put it in. I'm going to say fix to root form, and then I send it off. And then if I go into my my local host, this is the better one.
We don't see it because you're sharing the specific screen, I think.
Do you see it now?
Now we see the website. We can see what you were doing before.
Hang on, let's see. View this tab. Can you see this tab now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now it's gone, see? Look at that magic. I told it to get the root form instead of the noun form. That's the beauty of programming. Okay, so now it's easier to do this one, right? So how do I say I'm standing?
So you said it was ishe
Yes, there you go. You gotta do the glottal stop. And then you're standing.
It's not oro. Oro is when
Right.
it's on the
That's-
object, right?
That's only when it's the object and the first person is the subject.
Don't remember
It's ere.
first ere.
Yeah.
Ere
Ere. You're standing. Pe. Let's do pe. Pe.
So I'm not sure why for ishe there's the other before that. So I'm not sure if I should add anything else besides pe.
Pe Yeah. Pe Just like that. Pe or just pe
Mm-hmm.
Then the next one would be ore. Oro
Oro
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. That's the confusing part, is that when it's transitive, or really anytime, ore also gets oro. It's just that the only difference is that the oro is going to be in the place of the subject if it's ore. If it's ende, if it's you, then it's going to be in the place of the object. That's the difference. It's very subtle. But just remember that. It's a lot to process. All right, let's move on. So we've got, when it ends in an N, you get to ND, ndab. So pin, to shave, yeah? Ayopin, I'm shaving. I'm shaving my beard. We can say pindaba. Why am I shaving my beard? How am I shaving my beard? When am I shaving my beard? Where am I shaving my beard? What's happening while I'm shaving my beard? What am I using to shave my beard? Or to shave the skin off of a fruit, or, scrape, shave, pin. Then we've got, when it ends in an R, that goes to S. That's important to remember. So we already saw what nyeanga looks like. So nyeang means to speak. Nyengar means to sing. They're very similar words. So nyeang, because it ends in ng, becomes nyeengaba. Whereas nyengar, because it ends in R, becomes nyengasaba. So the R becomes an S, and it goes to saba. In the future tense, this R actually stays here. So I won't go into that too much right now, but just sometimes people, because that happens in the future tense, people who study a lot of tupi even, they will just write raba. They'll put an R there. That I haven't seen that attested in the present tense of the noun. It always happens in the future and the past tense. So when we change the time, the R stays, but in the present it doesn't. But some people, because it happens in the future and that, they end up putting the R. And so you'll see that, and that's just a common thing. Maybe that's like one of the first modern day things that, like, because of our misunderstanding of the language, ends up influencing the way that we write it. But yeah, so it's Neenga Saba. So this would be the place to sing, why you're singing, the way you're singing, everything related to singing. And then if it ends in an I, it just becomes a semi-vowel. So apiti, apiti, apitiaba, apitiaba, apitiaba. To assassinate something, and then all the circumstances around the assassination. Maybe the murder weapon. Who knows? Something like that. If it ends in a U, then it becomes wab. Aru. 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 Is it aru or aru? No, it's aru. Right? Aruaba. Aruaba. To prevent someone to do something, to harm them, to obstruct them, to get in their way. That's what aru means. And then aruaba would be like the reason why, how you're doing it, what you're doing. You got to think about the verb and what makes sense for the verb. This aba is pretty, useful. Abu, ablab. Same thing happens. So the I, the U, and the Y, they all just become semi-vowels versions of what they were. So that's like to violate. These are all bad words too if they end in these. They're all like, they're all so intense. To violate or infringe, to transgress. Ablaba would be all the circumstances, and then when it ends with a like an accented vowel, like this or even the U, which I haven't seen, or the Y, you basically treat it the same way as if it had an R. Basically, like, it loses its accent and just gets an S. So, like, if this was Nyengar or Nyenga, which was stated by Anchieta to exist, right? He was like, oh, the people in the Capitania de São Vicente, like what we call São Paulo, Anchieta marked that they would have said Anyenga, and they wouldn't have said Anyengar, right? They wouldn't have pronounced it, whereas the people up north would have pronounced the R more. But no matter what, whether you write that as having an accent or if you write it with having an R at the end, it's going to end up the same way. It would end up, if it was Onya Enga, it would end up being Onya Enga Saba, no matter what, whether it has an R or not. So that's one way that we can see that they're like two convergent forms, because they end up becoming basically the same thing. So it's not too important to say the R at the end of words if you're from São Paulo or anywhere in the south of Brazil for that matter. That was all like one big chunk. Yeah. And that's it. You guys have any questions about that? About the abas and how we can use that? You guys want to try and use them in a sentence? Try to come up with some sentences?
I was about to ask you to give some examples in a sentence of this circumstantial form.
Yeah, totally. Let me get my text edit. Oop. All right, I gotta share my whole screen now. Let me go back here. Stop sharing. Yeah, the ABBA. You can start making some too, Mateos. Send some in the chat. Let me share my screen. This one. All right. Y'all see. Okay. So let's try to think of some examples. Nyembo e. Nyembo e. That's a really good verb. What does nyembo e mean? Someone translate this to English. I want to do the second definition right here.
To learn?
Yeah, to learn. And let's just think about this verb for a second. So we have mbo e, that's ensinar, to teach. to teach something. It's a transitive verb. So let's put that here. Mbo'e. Can I paste and match style? There we go. And then with mbo'e, I'm gonna want to say that's to teach, right? And so when we learn, I guess in the tupi mindset, we're gonna use nye, which is a reflexive pronoun. That means myself. If you see ye or nye, that's the nasal version. That means yourself or themselves or whatever. It's a reflexive pronoun. So nyembo'e is to learn, or quite literally, to teach oneself, right? And so these verbs come with what we call a postposition. So take a look at what Navajo wrote here. Basically, he wrote, the object is always a person, okay? So the thing that we are teaching is not the subject, but it is the like not the subject of the lesson, but it's the people who are taking the lesson. That's the object of this verb. A lot of subject and objects. Hope you guys could process that. So you're teaching somebody. To teach something, you're gonna use this rese, which is like, it's just a preposition which expresses the circumstances. You can use ri, which is a preposition which expresses like causes, because, kind of like that. Or you can use the gerundio or permissivo, which I haven't taught you guys that yet. So let's make a sentence with rese. I don't know what that noise meant, but if someone's raising their hand, you can ask a question. Okay, so nyembo e.
It was the 15-minute noise, the saying that it's going to end in 15 minutes.
Oh, perfect. I think we'll end before then. So we have mbo e and nyembo e. And let's just make these bigger. There we go. So how do you think, so this is a transitive verb. And this, because we're putting an object into it already, it becomes an intransitive verb. Isn't that interesting? So we can make intransitive verbs out of transitive verbs by just preloading the object. Now we have a verb with a new meaning that's intransitive, grammatically. So if I'm learning, right, I'm teaching myself, how would I say I am teaching myself? Or let's say this, I'm teaching you tupi, you plural. So we're going to say she, opo, mbo, e, right? And I'm teaching you tupi. So we're going to say tupi rese. This is like, I'm teaching you tupi. Make that pink. Tupi rese. Okay? Go back to this. And this, let's give this a new color too. Why not? That's fun. Okay, so she opombo e tupirese. Is that right, Mateos? I teach y'all to be. Right? I'm teaching y'all to be. So opombo e sava tupi, right? The circumstance here of your, and let's see, it won't be opombe, it'll be nde or pe. We'll do that. The circumstance that I'm teaching you is tupi, right? That's how you're learning. So, does that make sense?
But if you would translate it, how would it be? Like, I know what you mean, but if I would translate this literally to English, what would it be?
Let's see. Let's do it like that. Like that. What I am teaching you is tupi. can
Okay.
add some Nyaenga, right? Tupi Nyaenga, the language of Tupi. And this
Okay,
pe,
you got it.
this pe is also going to turn green. Let you know those are the same things, right? So she, mbo e. Oh yeah, this S should also be pink. That's part of the ending. Mbo e sawa. What I am teaching you is Tupi. Um, so that's kind of an example, and I guess I haven't taught you how postpositions work, but they're basically the same thing as prepositions, but they go behind the clause that you're trying to describe rather than before them. So we could say like the circumstances. So let's try one with. Let's try one of you try to say I'm learning to be. I'm yeah, just I'm learning to be. Using this verb instead, intransitive verb.
So maybe Yembo e Saba Tupi Nyenga.
Well, first, before we use the saba, let's try to just conjugate the verb first. So I learn to be, or just I learn.
I don't know, because is it just because we're gonna use the second form, right? That one.
You're gonna
Yembo
use
e.
yeah. So this nye, you could think of it like a third person kind of form. The reflexive and the mutual pronouns are also conjugated like third persons. So when you have an intransitive verb, you use the first form. You use the a. Anything that's labeled like this, verbo intransitivo, is a first class verb. It's an active verb, something you actively do. So this one will be ishe.
So I still use the pronoun anyway.
You don't have to.
Because of the a?
Yeah. Anyembo e. Ishe anyembo e. This could just be anyembo e. Right?
Anyembo e.
And so now this is the pronoun, right? I teach myself. This is actually a pronoun. It's just nasal. So we'll put that in green too. That's a pronoun. Anyembo e. And then how do we say the subject that we're learning? What are we learning?
Do we need the samba there? Or
We're going to copy this form.
because then if I use saba, then I'm saying what I am learning is, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, exactly. Anyembo e sava tupinya engare. Tupinya enga, just like that. So it's like, yeah, what I am learning. That's basically what it is to be. What I am learning is to be. And just how would you do that? Just how would you conjugate that without the saba? Using the prepositions.
Just Anyembo e Tupingara Inyenga Rese.
Perfect. Yeah, just like that. And then this is the circumstance. This is what we're learning. And this is the object, right? And that's represented with this saba down here. So what I am learning is to be, and this is just I am learning to be. Just like that. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think that's good enough. That's quite a bit, huh? Let me paste this into the chat.
Yeah, a lot.
Took us a while to get here. You kind of jumped in the deep end, Paulo.
Sorry.
I say it took us a while to get here, so it's like jumping into the deep
Yeah.
end of a pool. You gotta
Yeah.
learn how to swim quickly. But it's okay. You can always go back and watch the YouTube videos, and luckily we recorded this, so we can go over this again. But how do you guys feel about this Saba? If you had to put it in your own words, just it would be nice to hear a minute or two of what is this used for in Tupi, just to hear it back.
Sorry, Kian.
Uh,
Could you repeat?
can you summarize in your own words what do we use this Saba suffix that I just taught you? What is the use of this suffix in relation to Tupi?
Well, um, just to have, for me, what I understood is that we are going to find, we have a noun of what the verb means. Like we're going to make a noun, to have a noun from that verb in a different way, in a different
Yes.
way.
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
definitely. It's what we call a deverbial. It's a deverber. It takes things away from being verbs. It's describing other things
Yeah.
about the verbs. How about you, Talu?
You,
Yeah. The impression I have is that it's like a way to create more nouns from a verb. Because if you just have one, then you just have that one thing that's like directly derived from that. But if you need to talk about what you're teaching, how you're teaching, through what you're teaching, then you need a way to create those words, how to ask about that specific thing. So now I'm going to start thinking that Portuguese and English need something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And this is just one of them. There's a lot of them, and some of them are similar to each other. There's one that's very similar to this, but instead of a B, it takes an R, so Sada, and that just means a person that does that thing. So it's like some person or something that does that thing, not necessarily a person, but a doer of that verb, right? So I would be for you, I would be your Porombo Esara. I am your teacher. Porombo Esara, the person who teaches the people, right? For you, I would be your Shembo Esara, because I'm your teacher, so you would call me Shembo Esara because I teach you. You're the object of the teaching, right to the left of the verb. And I'm the person that does it. Shembo Esara, I'll say it like this. Pembo Esara Ishe. I am your teacher. I'm y'all's teacher. Pembo Esara Ishe. Does that make sense?
Would Pembo Esada be the same as like a teacher in general as well?
No, this is me specifically speaking to you. You're the object. But Morombo Esara would be an absolute people. This means like people in general. So Morombo Esara Tiche Tiche. Ishe means I am a teacher of people. Right? The people is implied by this moro. I'm a teacher. Morombo Esara Ishe. Morombo Esara Ende Abe. You are also a teacher. Morombo Esara Ende Abe. English
Is a
ni
be also?
engerese. English ni engerese. English ni enga. Nde morombo saba.
That's what I was thinking. Like, we need a neologism for English.
Yeah, I think
the language of the land of north, something like that.
we're working on it. I think Homildo is going to going back and forth with me on this. I just think it needs to be short. I don't care if it's accurate. I just don't want it to sound ugly. That's what I care about. But I think I have a say in it because I'm a native speaker of that language. But I told him to ask Tom, who's a British guy. Anyways, it's already 8, so I'll let you go. Enjoy your nights. Thank you very much. Ayabete. for this class. It was kind of confusing, but I have a better idea of how I want to teach it now, and so I'm gonna upgrade the grammar and everything, and we'll get better at this together. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Kian.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you,
Valeu.
everyone.
Falou.
Ciao.